This is a 2013 Mini Cooper Coupe John Cooper Works, which is a lot to say, but basically it means this is the sportiest Mini body style in the sportiest trim level with a manual transmission. This may just be the most exciting Mini ever, and today I'm going to review it and show you all of its quirks and features. Before I get started, big news, this Mini Cooper Coupe is for sale and it's being auctioned live on Cars and Bids. This car has just over 52,000 miles and it's the best version of this, the Coupe John Cooper Works manual transmission. It's got it all and it can be yours on Cars and Bids. So once you finish watching this video, click the link in the description below to visit the live auction for this Mini Cooper where you can bid on it and buy it only on Cars and Bids. All right, time for the quirks and features of the Mini Cooper Coupe. And I'm going to start with a brief overview of exactly what this vehicle is. So here's the deal. Mini, the revived new Mini, came out in the early 2000s. And for a while, it was just the Mini Cooper, the two-door hatchback that everybody knows and loves. But of course, they wanted to diversify their model lineup away from just that one car, and so they started coming out with other versions. Initially, there was the Mini Convertible, which was a pretty obvious one. Then there was an SUV, the Mini Countryman, which was a fairly obvious one too. And then things started to get weird. Specifically, the Mini Coupe. That's this car. It's a two-seat sports car Mini that was intended to be more performance-focused than the regular hatchback. They also did the Mini Roadster, which was a convertible version of this car, a two-seater convertible sports car Mini. Now, the Coupe and the Roadster were not sold very long, only 2012 to 2015. They were never very popular, and they are quite rare to see driving around today. Although, interestingly enough, these are not the weirdest Mini versions they created during this product line expansion. That honor goes to the two-door version of the Mini Countryman SUV, which was called the Mini Paceman. That was only sold for a few years. It's even rarer than these, and it was stranger, and it was offered with a manual transmission. But while the Mini Coupe and Roadster may not have been the rarest of the new body style Minis, that honor going to the Paceman, they were certainly the sportiest. Like I said, they're two-seater cars as opposed to other Minis that had back seats, and there's also a lot of design changes that made them look like more focused, more aggressive, sporty cars. A big one is the windshield rake, which you can see here is fairly steep like you'd expect in a sports car compared to here in a standard Mini where it's a lot more upright. Now, this steep windshield rake met this coupe roof and then a sloped fastback design going down the back end, which was a very distinctive design element of the Mini Coupe. So it had its own special design, but the drawback was that the fastback sloping roof in back didn't really gel all that well with the traditional Mini look in the lower half of the car. You had this sloping fastback and then kind of a bulbous pop-out rear end. It just didn't work perfectly, and as a result, there was a lot of criticism of the way this car looked, and I think that also contributed to its kind of slow sales throughout the years. People just thought it looked a little funky and a little unorthodox compared to the standard Mini Cooper, the hatchback, which was such a beloved, iconic design. And regardless of whether you think it was ugly or cool or whatever, the Coupe was certainly distinctive, and there were other odd components. For instance, the roof was never offered with a matching color as the body. You can see here the roof is silver, the body is blue. They never did a single color option. You just couldn't get it. And the roof also had a very distinctive integrated roof spoiler, as you can see. It's back here, fixed in place, and it kind of hangs out over the rear window to the point where it almost looks like a backwards facing bill on a baseball hat, particularly since the roof is a different color from the rest of the car. And to this day, a lot of people, when talking about the Mini Coupe, refer to it as the backwards hat Mini because of this kind of distinctive, unusual design element. The result of this unusual design, like I mentioned, was slow sales, although I don't think the look was the only thing that played a role. The other big factor was this car lost a lot of practicality compared to a standard Mini. It drove better, which I'll get into later when I get behind the wheel, but you lost the back seats, the hot hatchback practicality, and so it was a car for a much smaller, more niche audience compared to the regular Mini Cooper. But anyway, let's talk performance. I'll get to the engine in a second, but first, one interesting thing about this Mini, that rear roof spoiler was not the only spoiler this car had. The other one was active. It's located here. This panel, like on the, I guess, trunk lid, if you want to call it that, it would pop up once the Mini hit 50 miles an hour. That spoiler would raise and it would provide around 90 pounds of downforce. Not a huge amount, but it was kind of a big deal. The first Mini ever with active Aero, and surely the only. And it certainly helped to emphasize this car's high performance ethos compared to the more tame standard Mini. So let's talk about that performance. Mini offered the Coupe in several different versions, but this is the highest performance, top powered version of them all, the John Cooper Works model. Under the hood, you have a 1.6 liter turbo 4-cylinder that makes 208 horsepower. That doesn't sound like a very large number, and indeed, when you look at the acceleration figures, 0 to 60 was in the low 6-second range, which doesn't seem all that fast either. But this car was light and little, and it could be flung around. Just how small is it? Well, it's over a foot shorter than a Honda Fit, which isn't exactly a large car, and it only weighed around 2,700 pounds, which just isn't all that much physical size, especially for a fun, sporty car you want to toss through the curves. So the Mini Cooper Coupe was the lightest Mini that they made, and the sportiest with its fastback design, but performance-y upgrades compared to the standard model didn't just stop there. There were other benefits too. For example, sport suspension that actually lowered the car about a ½ inch compared to the standard Mini. The Coupe models also got bigger brakes, both front and rear, and stronger anti-roll bars for less body roll when you're flinging it around on the racetrack. The Mini Coupe and the Roadster also have a central exit exhaust, which is another distinctive touch to further emphasize their sportiness. And this particular Mini Coupe, I really like the way the stripes are. They're contrasting colors to the roof and the body, which are contrasting. So you have blue with silver stripes on the body, and then silver with blue stripes on the roof, which is kind of a cool way to do it. It makes the car feel sporty. This particular Mini Coupe also has these driving lights you can see up front. They're covered here, so you don't turn them on and blind people. But when you're on the racetrack at night, take off the covers, and you can drive even faster thanks to additional light. By the way, one other interesting quirk with the lighting, the headlights you can see are a part of the hood, except that they're not. Open up the hood and there are actually cutouts designed to go around the headlights because by regulation, the headlights have to stay fixed in place. So Mini had to create holes in the hood would open, but the headlights would stay put, and that's how they did that. But when it comes to a Mini, all of the really interesting quirks and features are on the inside, and so we move in here. Open up the door, and the first thing you notice is a checkered flag pattern on the door sill to remind you you have this special sporty car, and the John Cooper Works logo in the center to remind you you have the specialist, sportiest version. And go even further, and you can also see a checkered flag pattern on the seats. It's kind of subtle and sort of a weird Mini take on the checkered flag, but it's there, and it helps again remind you this isn't just a boring normal car. Now, from there, you go to start the car, and the key is very unusual. It's this odd circle. As you can see, it doesn't look like any other key fob. It's very distinctly Mini, and the trunk button actually has an image of a Mini with the trunk open, which is kind of a cool touch. But to start the Mini, you actually insert the circle into this slot next to the steering wheel, and then you press the start-stop button. This was in the days before you could just get in and press a button, but still past the days of a traditional key you twisted. You actually have to kind of do both here, which is how it went for a while. Now, the circle of that key is important because circles are actually kind of a theme in this car. For instance, the interior door handle is a circle. You can see it's in this circle housing, and then the part you actually pull is a half circle within the circle. You also have circular climate control vents, as you can see, and circular speakers on the doors, but undoubtedly the most distinctive and well-known circle in a Mini is the giant circle speedometer in the center of the dashboard. It is massive and it is circular, and it has your speed on the upper half with a needle that climbs as you climb in speed. Now, the cool thing about this dashboard circle is that it also integrates the radio. All of the radio controls are integrated into the lower half of this circle. It's a small space, but they've put everything in here. It's actually pretty brilliant packaging, as you can see. And there's a little screen above the radio controls that give a radio display readout, and also the date and the time, and in the speedometer circle you have various warning lights and your fuel gauge. All of that stuff packed into this circle on the dashboard. Again, it's a pretty neat touch. Now, I say this is cool and distinctive and special, this circle in the middle, but really what it is a cost-cutting measure. It allows Mini to create only one dashboard regardless of whether it's right-hand drive or left-hand drive, which saves them money. But it's amazing to see this cost-cutting measure implemented in such a great way that it actually turns out to be a cool feature on the car. And before you get too worried, don't fret. You still have a speed readout above your steering wheel. There's another gauge here that shows a tachometer, your engine speed, along with a few other important warning lights, and your speed digitally displayed right below, along with your odometer and trip odometer. So you don't have to look into the center to see your speed. It's also shown digitally on the steering column right ahead of you. But as cool as that center gauge circle is, directly below that you have maybe the coolest touch in the whole car. The climate controls are arranged in the Mini logo. You can see the circle in the center and the wings out to the side. Those are the buttons to turn on various things. The dial in the center lets you direct airflow. It's a pretty brilliant little integration of the Mini logo inside the car. A lot of people probably wouldn't even notice that it's there, but that is the Mini logo integrated into the AC controls, which is neat. And speaking of unusual controls, the dial to change your fan speed is to the left and the temperature to the right. They're sort of integrated into the trim on the side of the center control stack. It's kind of odd, but even more unusual than that, directly below you have these toggle switches to adjust the power windows, the locks, and turn on the fog light. These toggles are kind of cool. They feel old school, they're nice to touch, and they're separated by hoops so you can determine exactly which is which. What an interesting thing. And as far as toggle switches go, you have more of them on the ceiling. By the rear view mirror, you can see here these toggles all control your interior lighting. So reading lights, driver and passenger side, and also your dome light, and you have a toggle in the middle that controls your rear spoiler. I mentioned that spoiler is active. It goes up at 50 miles an hour, but you can also push a button to have it rise if you want to, in case you want to just drive around at low speeds with your spoiler up and flex. And one other quirky touch you'll find in this panel of toggle switches on the ceiling, this switch here controls the color of the mood lighting. You can see I'm flipping the switch and the lights here are changing color. That's the general ambient lighting in the interior. They change on the ceiling right there, but also in the door panel. As you can see, each switch flip changes the color a little bit to a different color. You can select what you want by just flipping that switch to the color of your desire. And also on the subject of controls, to the left of the steering wheel, you have this little button. It's like a headlight and it says 2. That turns on those cool driving fog lights that I showed you earlier, mounted on the front with the caps on them. You can turn them on with that button. As for the, annoying controls in this car, there's one very obvious one, and that's the turn signals. Because Mini is a BMW brand, it also adopted BMW turn signals from this era, which were incredibly annoying. Here's what happened. You would put on the turn signal, say down to the left, and then it would pop back to the central position, but the signal would stay on. So how do you turn off the signal? Well, you push it to the right and then the right signal goes on. So then you push it to the left and the left signal goes on again, and the whole thing is a complete disaster. It turns out you have to push it all the way down to turn it on, but then you do a half push to turn it off, which just isn't a great user experience, and frankly, there was no need to reinvent that wheel. The other annoying thing about the Mini Coupe is the reach you have to do in order to get the seatbelt on. The seatbelt, as you can see, is not mounted on the B-pillar where it would be in most other cars. Instead, it's about 8 or 9 inches behind that, mounted on the seat itself, and so you have to reach really far back to grab it. It's actually kind of difficult to do. Now, the reason they did it this way is there was a convertible version of this car that didn't have a B-pillar, and so they had to mount the seatbelt on the seat for that car, and so they wanted to make production easy, didn't want to create two different seat designs, one for the Coupe and one for the Roadster, and so they all got the Roadster seats. But the result is that kind of long reach, which is a little bit annoying. Now, you might be wondering, speaking of this area, what exactly goes on behind the seats in the Mini Coupe? The answer is, lift the seat forward, you can see there's a shelf here where you can store stuff, which I guess would be nice. You also have some speakers here for sound, of course, and you have, hilariously, a cup holder mounted at the back of the front center console. This cup holder would be on other Mini models that have back seats, makes sense. Only problem is this car doesn't have back seats, so it's a cup holder for no one, but there is a secret cup holder there in addition to the two that you have up front. Last item worth noting back here, you have a pass-through to the trunk. You can see here it can be locked, so if you give the car to a valet, give them the valet key, they can't open it up and get into your trunk, but there is a pass-through here for larger items that go through into the cargo area. And finally, we move on to that cargo area in the back of the Mini Coupe. To open it up, there's a little button you can press back here that'll pop it open, or you press the button on the key fob that looks like a Mini Cooper with the trunk open. Unfortunately, not a Cooper Coupe, but still a cool little touch. Anyway, open it up, and one interesting thing you discover, it's actually a hatchback. Even though this is a coupe, or at least that's how Mini calls it, and that's how people call it, it is a hatchback just like the regular Mini. The only difference is the sloping roof line instead of the standard roof and the traditional Mini hatchback. Now, when you get back here, you can see there's actually a decent amount of space back here. Again, less space than the regular hatchback, but more than you might think. You get some good size storage space where you can stick stuff, and this car is more practical than you might expect, particularly when you consider that center pass-through to the seats. If you have some larger item that you need to stick through, well, you can do it here, and you can get your giraffe figurine collection transported in your Mini Coupe. One other cool thing, you also have this little storage compartment in the floor. It's kind of hidden here, but you lift it up and you got a little extra space for smaller or more fragile items if you don't want them rolling around as you go through the corners. All right, driving the Mini Cooper Coupe. This is as close to a sports car as Mini ever got. Like, it's little and it's tossable and it's fun. And I gotta say, my experience with this car was shaped way back when it was new. I had a friend who was working as a car journalist, and he got a press car one of these, and we went and beat on it on some great roads, and it was so much fun. I mean, it was just a total blast to drive. And I still feel that way. I just still think this car is like a great driving car. So what makes it so great? Well, first off, you know, Mini back in this era, it really was like an enthusiast brand. You know, it's hard to believe now because Mini has gotten bigger and enthusiasts have kind of left it behind, but back in this era, car enthusiasts loved Mini. They pitched themselves as a driving enthusiast brand, and they were. The cars were like fun and light and little, and you could toss them around and really have a good time with them. And this was the most tossy around good time car. 2,700 pound curb weight. You know, you look at the powertrain, you think, well, 1.6 turbo 4-cylinder, only 208 horsepower. It doesn't sound like all that much. And frankly, the 0 to 60 times 6 seconds, it doesn't sound all that fast. But when you actually get in the car, it feels fast because it's little and buzzy and low, and it feels so connected to the road. The steering and handling is just fantastic. And I want to give a special shout out to the steering specifically, because this car does steering in a way that is hard to do in 2012. And that was the thing Mini was great at. The car is just a precision car. You make a slight wheel movement and it changes directions very quickly and very predictably and very wonderfully. And they got away with that at the time. Their steering was basically the best in the business. Front wheel drive, rear wheel drive didn't matter. Their steering, not their handling necessarily, but their steering was just amazingly precise and quick. And that made the cars feel go-kart-like. People always said that about early Minis, and it's still kind of true, to be honest. It's just a fun car. And this is the most fun version of it. It's the lightest, the littlest, the most tossable, the most exciting. And you don't even have to deal with all that much torque steer, believe it or not. It's a powerful front-wheel drive car, but it wasn't so much power that torque steer became a problem. And even today, which is kind of a rainy day, or it was rainy and now it's just wet, there's not a lot of wheel hop, which surprises me. I would think there would be, but there's not. Ultimately, this car is just an absolute thrill to drive. It's a total kick in the face, and I've always just enjoyed the hell out of it. And it's such an enjoyable car. So, you might be wondering, are there any drawbacks to the driving experience of this car? And I can think of two specifically. One is that I haven't been the biggest fan of BMW manuals since like the early 2000s. The clutch is usually just a little bit too notchy. And that's the case here. You have kind of a kink in the middle of the clutch instead of just a simple linear movement like it should be. And that's true of BMWs, it's true of this Mini, it's just a shame. Now the good news is the shifter is excellent. It has the perfect amount of weight. It's light, but it's not too light. It's easy to move, but it's not vague. Like it's a great shifter. Great for, every time you shift, you feel like you've accomplished something great. It's just too bad that the clutch isn't great. And the other drawback is the size. When you're sitting in these seats, you're fine. I mean, I'm tall, I have headroom, I have legroom, no problem, but you do lose the back seats and you lose the hatchback capability of the normal Mini. And that's one thing that a lot of people loved about the normal Mini, was it was a practical hatchback car. Now this car drives better than a normal Mini, but you have to make a determination, is the added driving experience worth the trade-off of losing the back seats, the cargo area, etc.? And everybody's kind of got to determine that for themselves. Now I have a suspicion the reason this car wasn't very successful is because most people thought, hey, the regular one is almost as good to drive and it's more practical, and it probably looks a little better. I've always thought this was a cool car. I thought it was a hidden gem of the Mini lineup for people who enjoy driving. It's not the most practical Mini, it's not the best looking Mini, but it is certainly the best driver's Mini, and particularly this one, the JCW Coupe manual. This is the car to get, and it's cool. And even 10 years later, after I initially drove one, it is still cool, and it still drives well, and it's still a lot of fun. And I have a suspicion that a lot of people out there would feel the same. It's just a cool and kind of interesting car. It's always been a bit of a guilty pleasure for me. And so that's the Mini Cooper Coupe. The Coupe was a short-lived Mini thing, but I liked it. I always thought it was kind of cool looking, a little quirky and weird, and this is the best version, the JCW with 3 pedals, and it can be yours on Cars and Bids. Anyway, now it's time to give this Mini a DougScore. And the DougScore is here, 49 out of 100, which places the Mini Coupe JCW here against some sort of similar vehicles. The Mini Coupe is near the bottom here, but that's mainly because its daily score is low due to its impracticality. In the weekend categories, it beats out the Ford Fiesta ST and the Mazda Speed 3, both of which are excellent. But impracticality is the drawback, and that was the issue with this car when it was new, too. It's Mini Cooper fun without hatchback interior space. That may be a demerit, but it's still a hoot to drive.